Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here. This time reviewing on Final Fantasy The Spirits Within. Now, as you know, Final Fantasy The Spirits of Within is meant to be a 2001 science fiction film that was directed by Hironobu Sakaguchi, who was also the creator of the Final Fantasy franchise, as well as creating this movie with a different premise from the fantasy kind of genre. And the premise of the film is meant to take place in 2065, where Earth has become infested by alien life forms known as the Phantoms that end up taking kind of people's souls and killing them instantly. We kind of see how Dr. Aki Ross and her mentor Dr. Sid try to find elements of Gaia in hopes of taking down the Phantoms. So over the course of the film, we do see how Captain Grey, played by Alec Baldwin, and his squad, which consists of Ryan, who's kind of the black guy of the group. You got Nail, who's kind of the jokester but not serious, and Jane, who is kind of the kind of character who's just there. So over the course of the film, we see kind of how Dr. Aki Ross ends up kind of seeing visions of these phantoms and tries to learn more about it. We also do kind of see how General Douglas Wynn is determined to use a special kind of cannon to destroy the Phantoms. And I kind of feel Douglas's character is just thrown in to kind of be the evil villain for the sake of it, with doing questionable things and kind of thrown in to be evil for the sake of it. And I think the film tries to be something different than Final Fantasy, which kind of got affected badly. I think the problem is when I do look at Dr. Aki Ross, I don't think her character feels memorable. She's just thrown in with just a purpose and that's it. I think when she does have her visions, it does remind me of the second Terminator film, where Sarah Connor had visions of Judgment Day. And I kind of feel, yeah, this movie just feels more like it's trying to be something different than Final Fantasy. And keep in mind that you did have the other Final Fantasy games up till Final Fantasy from the 2002 one. So you had ones from 2001 like X and kind of X2 and 2 and 3 and so you could pretty much have adapted those games into a proper film series. I think the problem is I just think it went with a totally different approach that kind of got affected badly. And I know this film did become a box office bomb and was blamed for the demise of Square Pictures. I know that it did kind of leave a divided fan base. I know in the game Life is Strange, you even have Max talking about watching the film Final Fantasy Spirits Within in Victoria's bedroom, saying, "I don't care what anybody says, that's one of the best sci-fi films ever made." And even the team from Mass Effect took some inspiration from the film. So, in other words, it's kind of like watching a film pilot of Mass Effect. I think the problem is, yeah, with the merger from Square and Enix, you can kind of tell that they did at least try to salvage Final Fantasy by doing other films and moving away from Spirits Within. I think the problem is, if you take away what the story Final Fantasy is, then you're left with something that people aren't gonna like. Sometimes changing the status quo can affect things badly. I think it's like what happened with Digimon Adventure Tri, as Season 2 left room for another story but because of Try and using and rehashing elements of Season 5, you were kind of left with a story copying itself too much. I think the problem is the film just feels dull, the characters don't feel rememberable, and it just feels like this was just done as an attempt to try to do something away from the Final Fantasy genre. So I think this film deserves a thumbs down. It's not rememberable, not great, and just wasted potential. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.